did not do anything wrong.
A guilty verdict in the obstruction of justice trial.
To win in a competitive marketplace.
Enron stock keeps plunging.
Guilty verdicts in the biggest case of corporate fraud in history. 38 counts of fraud and conspiracy.
Skilling, the disgraced former CEO of Enron, struck a deal with the Justice Department.
During the height of Wednesday's blackout, fire crews had to free people trapped in elevators.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to answer the committee's questions, but on the advice of my counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question based on the protection afforded me under the Constitution of the United States.
Every year, every day, every week, you have to come up with new ideas.
In the late 20th century, Enron emerged as a symbol of innovation and success. But beneath its gleaming surface lay a web of lies and manipulation, a scheme orchestrated by a group of ambitious and unscrupulous men. Today, we take a deep dive into how they took Wall Street and the entire world by storm, leaving behind a trail of devastation that reshaped the corporate world and shattered public trust. Enron was founded in 1985 by Kenneth Lay, who we will cover later in the story, through a merger of Lay's original company, Lay's Houston Natural Gas, and InterNorth. Over the years, it expanded into new areas such as energy trading, electricity markets, and natural gas markets. Enron's success was built on its aggressive trading practices, and by the late 1990s, the company was portrayed as a leader in energy trading. It also ventured into broadband trading and other non-energy businesses. By the year 2000, it was one of the largest companies in the world, operating in over 40 countries, with a market capitalization of around $70 billion. However, lurking beneath was a dark, dirty, and sinister secret, fostered by those who ran the company. The Enron scandal revolved around the use of complex financial instruments, creative accounting, and the manipulation of financial statements to make the company appear far more profitable and solvent than it was. One tactic, mark-to-market accounting, which is a method of valuing assets based on their current market value rather than their historical cost. Enron's traders and executives used mark-to-market accounting to record future profits from energy contracts as current income. This practice inflated Enron's earnings, leading to artificial profits on paper. However, it also created a discrepancy between real earnings and reported earnings, as many of these projected profits were never realized. This allowed Enron to post consistent, impressive financial results that were far from the reality of their operations. In addition to mark-to-market accounting, Enron used special purpose entities to hide massive amounts of debt and liabilities off their balance sheet. These special purpose entities were legally separate entities that allowed Enron to shift its risky debts and losses to these off-balance sheet companies, giving the appearance that Enron's financial statement was very strong. Enron created these special purpose entities, which were often funded by loans guaranteed by Enron stock. At the time, nobody questioned Enron's financial statements. Enron was such a symbol of innovation, business, and technology that Enron Field was declared the new home of the Houston Astros following their departure from the Houston Astrodome. The first game was played on March 30th, 2000.
It is a marriage of technology and tradition, a state-of-the-art stadium bringing open-air baseball back to Houston. From roof to roof, this ultimate playground for the boys of summer prepares to welcome Astros and fans to Enron Field, our new downtown diamond.
In March of 2001, Bethany McLean, a reporter with Fortune magazine, who wrote an article titled, "Is Enron Overpriced?", which raised questions about Enron's financial condition. Specifically, how did Enron make its money? Enron filed for bankruptcy in December 2001, and the true scale of the company's financial manipulation came to light. Enron's corporate culture, fostered by top executives like Jeffrey Skilling, Andrew Fastow, and Kenneth Lay, was one that prioritized growth at all costs, even if it meant engaging in unethical practices and misleading investors. Enron's leadership pushed employees to adopt an aggressive, risk-taking approach. This culture of growth was reinforced by Enron's stock-based compensation plans, which incentivized executives and employees to take on more risk and inflate the company's stock price, regardless of the underlying financial reality. The company created an atmosphere where challenging the financial statements or questioning management was discouraged. Senior executives like Jeffrey Skilling and Richard Causey were seen as brilliant innovators who pushed forward new ideas like energy trading markets. But this also meant that internal controls and audits were often compromised. Enron's internal auditors, as well as its external auditor, Arthur Andersen, were complicit in overlooking or even endorsing the fraudulent activities. Arthur Andersen, which was responsible for ensuring the integrity of Enron's financial statements, failed to properly challenge Enron's accounting practices and even committed obstruction when the scandal began to unravel. Kenneth Lay was the founder and CEO of Enron, and he played a central role in the company's rise and ultimate collapse. Born on April 15, 1942, in Tyrone, Missouri, Lay grew up in a modest household. His father was a Baptist minister and a farmer. Lay's first marriage ended in divorce. In 1982, he married Linda Phillips Lay, a philanthropist who shared his passion for charitable work. Lay had 5 children from his 2 marriages and was described as a devoted family man. Lay was a well-educated man with a background in economics and a PhD from the University of Houston. Lay and his wife were known for their charitable giving and involvement in various philanthropic endeavors, particularly in the Houston area. He donated generously to educational institutions, including the University of Missouri and the University of Houston. Lay and his wife supported cultural institutions like the Houston Symphony and Houston Grand Opera. They contributed to numerous charities, often focused on education and social welfare. Lay was a lifelong Baptist and often spoke about his faith publicly. He and his wife were active members of the First United Methodist Church in Houston, and his religious convictions influenced his public persona. Lay positioned Enron as a leader in energy trading, turning it into a major corporation. Under his leadership, the company embraced the concept of energy deregulation, and Enron became known for trading not only energy commodities, but also complex financial derivatives. He cultivated an image of innovation, promising investors and employees high returns, which made the company seem like an unstoppable force in the business world. At its peak, Enron was considered one of the most successful companies in America, even being ranked as the 7th largest company by revenue in the U.S. in 2001. In late 2001, it was revealed that Enron had been using accounting loopholes, special purpose entities, and mark-to-market accounting to hide debt and inflate profits. Lay was initially able to avoid being implicated in the company's fraudulent practices. However, as investigations progressed, it became clear that he had played a significant role in enabling or even encouraging the unethical practices that led to Enron's downfall. In addition, at the time of the collapse, Ken Lay had already sold $300 million in Enron stock. Lay was indicted on charges of securities fraud, conspiracy, and other crimes related to the scandal. He was accused of misleading investors and employees about Enron's financial health and engaging in fraudulent practices to cover up the company's massive debts. In 2004, he stood trial alongside former Enron COO Jeffrey Skilling. Lay maintained his innocence, claiming that he had been misled by others in the company and had no knowledge of the fraudulent activities. In a speech, he compared the investigation of Enron to 9/11 and claimed that Enron was under attack just as America was.
Probably in more normal circumstances, I would have had a few more words to say about September the 11th. Just like America's under attack by terrorism, I think we're under attack. And of course, now we've got the SEC inquiry, informal inquiry.
Although Lay faced immense public scrutiny following Enron's collapse, his wife, Linda, defended him publicly insisting on his innocence and portraying him as a victim of circumstances. Lay's financial and social standing took a severe hit as he was stripped of his wealth and reputation. Kenneth Lay had significant political connections, particularly with prominent figures in the Republican Party, though he also maintained relationships with some Democrats. His political ties were a key aspect of his influence and public persona during Enron's rise to power. Some of the most notable political figures he was close to were George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Dick Cheney, Ann Richards, Rick Perry, Phil Gramm, John Ashcroft, and Tom DeLay. Lay was a staunch advocate for deregulation, which aligned with Republican policies in the 1980s and 1990s. He lobbied for policies that enabled Enron to dominate the energy market. His political contributions totaled millions of dollars, making him a major donor to both parties, though primarily Republicans. After Enron's collapse, many political figures distanced themselves from Lay, denying knowledge of or involvement in Enron's fraudulent activities. However, his close ties to influential politicians left a lasting mark on perceptions of corporate and political cronyism. Watch this clip of George W. Bush claiming to not know Ken Lay personally.
The administration is deeply concerned about its effects on the economy. We're also deeply concerned about its effects on the lives of our citizenry. I do know that Mr. Lay came to the White House early in my administration, along with I think 20 other business leaders to discuss the state of the economy. It was just kind of a general discussion. I have not met with him personally.
How much do you do about pensioners now? Isn't that horse already out of the barn?
Well, our group is meeting, and they will bring recommendations here. They'll fully investigate what went on. My concern, of course, is for the shareholders of Enron, but I have great concern for the stories, for those I read about in the stories who put their life savings aside and for whatever reason, based upon some rule or regulation, got trapped in this awful bankruptcy and have lost life savings. And one of the things this group is going to do is take a good hard look at it.
However, Enron founder Ken Lay and his family rank among President Bush's biggest financial backers of his political career. The family donated about $140,000 to Bush's political campaigns in Texas and for the White House. George W. Bush would even call Ken Lay by his nickname, Kenny Boy. Overall, Enron employees gave Bush some $600,000 in political donations. This indicates a deeper relationship than what former President George W. Bush insinuated. Ken was especially close to George W. Bush's father, former President George H.W. Bush. Ken Lay had an all-star attorney named Michael Ramsey, who was a well-known criminal defense attorney based in Houston, Texas. Ramsey was celebrated for his courtroom skills and experience in defending clients in high-stakes cases. The defense argued that Ken Lay was unaware of the financial improprieties and fraud occurring at Enron. They claimed he relied on subordinates for financial details and acted in good faith to save the company. Despite having a powerful legal team, the evidence, along with the witness testimonies, were compelling to the jury. On May 25, 2006, Ken Lay was convicted on 6 counts of securities fraud and conspiracy. Here is a statement that Ken gave following his conviction.
Certainly, we're surprised. I think probably even more appropriately to say we're shocked. Certainly, this was not the outcome we expected. I firmly believe I'm innocent of the charges against me. As I have said from day one, I still firmly believe that as of this day. But despite what happened today, I am still a very blessed man. I have on my left this beautiful lady that's my wife. I have a very warm and loving and Christian family that supports me, a lot of friends, including some out there in the audience right now. And most of all, we believe that God, in fact, is in control. And indeed, He does work all things for good for those who love the Lord. And we love our Lord, and ultimately, all of these things will work for good. Thank you so much for all of your courtesies, all of your interest, and obviously as time goes on we'll have more things to say, but that's all I want to say today. Thank you.
Unfortunately, on July 5, 2006, while awaiting sentencing, Kenneth Lay died of a heart attack at the age of 64 at his home in Aspen, Colorado. Perhaps the toll the trial took on him, along with the idea of being sentenced to 20-plus years and knowing that at the age of 64, he would likely die in a federal penitentiary prior to getting paroled, was far too much weight for his mind to bear. More than likely, the stress of his situation is what caused his early passing. His death was seen by many as a tragic end to a man who had once been a powerful figure in American business. His death prevented formal sentencing and led to the vacating of his convictions under legal principles at the time. Despite his allegations, guilty verdict, and George W. Bush claiming to not know Ken personally, former President George H. Bush attended his memorial service. Lay's role in the Enron scandal left a tarnished legacy. He was seen as a key architect of the company's culture of deceit and greed. His leadership, combined with his close ties to political figures, led to a sense of impunity in the company's actions. Lay's personal life reflects the contrast between his public image as a charitable, family-oriented man and his role in one of the largest corporate scandals in history. This duality has left a complicated and polarizing legacy. Jeffrey Skilling was the COO and later the CEO of Enron, and he played a pivotal role in the company's meteoric rise and catastrophic collapse. Skilling was born on November 25, 1953 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He graduated from Southern Methodist University with a degree in applied science in 1975. He earned an MBA from Harvard Business School in 1979, where he graduated in the top 5% of his class and was a Baker Scholar. Skilling joined Enron in 1990 after a successful career in consulting, particularly with McKinsey & Company. His expertise in financial markets and management consulting made him a valuable addition to the company. Skilling was known for his confidence and sharp intellect, traits that propelled him to the top of Enron's executive ranks. He led a high-powered lifestyle, enjoying luxury homes, fine dining, and other trappings of success. Skilling was married twice. His first marriage ended in divorce, and he has 3 children from that marriage. The pressure and demands of his career at Enron were likely factors contributing to the end of their marriage. He married his second wife, Rebecca Carter, in 2002 after the Enron collapse. Carter worked as Enron's board secretary before their marriage. As COO, Skilling played a critical role in Enron's rapid growth during the 1990s. He championed Enron's aggressive expansion into trading energy futures, as well as other non-energy related ventures like broadband services. He was known for pushing Enron's business model, focusing on high-risk, high-reward trading, and using complex financial instruments. In February of 2001, Skilling became CEO of Enron, succeeding Kenneth Lay. However, his tenure was short-lived. He resigned as CEO in August 2001, citing personal reasons. This resignation came just months before the company's massive financial collapse was revealed. Skilling's resignation came at a critical time, as Enron's financial troubles were becoming more apparent. Although Skilling initially denied any wrongdoing, it was later revealed that he was deeply involved in the company's deceptive financial practices. He was aware of the company's use of complex financial instruments to hide losses and inflate profits, and he was instrumental in pushing these strategies forward. It was also discovered that at the time of the Enron collapse, Skilling had already sold $200 million in Enron stock. In 2004, Skilling was indicted on charges of securities fraud, insider trading, and conspiracy related to the Enron scandal. He was accused of misleading investors, analysts, and employees about Enron's true financial condition. The prosecution argued that Skilling, as CEO, was directly responsible for the company's deceptive financial reporting. The trial began in 2006. Skilling's lead defense attorney was Daniel Petrocelli, who at the time was already a high-profile attorney involved in high-profile cases. He represented Fred Goldman, the father of Ron Goldman, in the wrongful death civil suit against O.J. Simpson, in which the suit resulted in a $33.5 million judgment. Despite Skilling having a strong defense team led by Petrocelli, the evidence and testimonies against him were detrimental to his defense. And on May 25, 2006, Skilling was convicted on 19 counts of securities fraud, conspiracy, and insider trading. On October 23, 2006, he was sentenced to 24 years and 4 months in prison. In the world of white-collar crime, this was looked at as one of the harshest sentences ever handed down. In addition to his prison sentence, he was also ordered to forfeit $45 million in assets, which was intended to compensate victims of the scandal.
First of all, on behalf of everyone associated with this trial, from the judge to the jury to the court staff and all the members of the media, on behalf of Mr. Skilling, I'd like to thank everyone. This is a difficult process for everyone, and everyone's treated us with utmost courtesy and respect and cooperation. We had a trial. We obviously did not come out the way we had hoped. It doesn't change our view of what happened at Enron, and certainly doesn't change our view of Jeff Skilling's innocence. The jury saw it differently. That was their right, and we will take it from here and continue to fight the good fight.
However, while Skilling was incarcerated, tragedy would strike. On February 4th, 2011, Skilling's personal life took a turn when his youngest son, John Taylor J.T. Skilling, passed away at the age of 20 due to a drug overdose. J.T. was a bright 20-year-old communications major at Chapman College in Orange, California. He was an aspiring musician who had a lot of talent. In this video, he is playing the guitar while his friend records and speaks of their musical ambitions. The timing of J.T.'s death was especially poignant because it occurred against the backdrop of the ongoing consequences of Enron's collapse and his father's legal troubles. The family had already endured significant public scrutiny due to the massive financial losses that Enron's collapse caused to investors, employees, and the public. JT's tragic passing added another layer of sadness to the Skilling family story. Unfortunately, Jeffrey Skilling was not granted release for JT's funeral. Following JT's death, the family, particularly Jeffrey Skilling, maintained a degree of privacy. It's important to note that such personal tragedies are deeply painful, and media coverage of such events is often complex, especially when connected to public figures. While Jeffrey Skilling was a controversial figure due to his involvement in the Enron scandal, many expressed their condolences and sympathy toward the Skilling family in the wake of the tragedy. I think it is important to remember that due to the actions of Jeffrey Skilling at Enron, JT, along with the rest of Jeffrey Skilling's family, were victims of this scandal as well. The tragedy highlights the personal toll that major public scandals can take on those involved, even beyond the primary figures at the center of the controversy. Condolences to the family and rest in peace to John Taylor Skilling. Jeffrey Skilling appealed his conviction multiple times, arguing that his trial was unfair and that his sentencing was too harsh. In 2013, an appeals court overturned some of his convictions, leading to a reduced sentence of 14 years, down from the original 24 years. Skilling was released from federal prison in February 2019 after serving about 12 years of his sentence. After his release, Skilling reportedly explored ventures in the energy and financial sectors, including launching a startup focused on energy investments. This raised questions about his potential re-entry into the business world. Despite his conviction, Skilling has consistently maintained that he did not knowingly commit fraud.
I do not believe I did not do anything wrong that was not in the interest, and all the time that I worked for Enron Corporation, that was in the interest of the shareholders of the company.
Andrew Fastow was the CFO of Enron and one of the central figures in the company's massive accounting scandal. In addition, he was the general partner of the special purpose entities. Fastow is credited with being the mastermind that created these entities that allowed Enron to hide debt while reporting inflated earnings. Fastow personally profited from managing some of the special purpose entities, earning tens of millions of dollars in addition to his Enron salary. Fastow joined Enron in 1990, brought in by Jeffrey Skilling to help with the company's ambitious financial strategies. Fastow became CFO in 1998 and was instrumental in developing Enron's complex financial deals and special purpose entities. These special purpose entities, such as LJM1 and LJM2, were designed to move debt off Enron's balance sheet and inflate profits, misleading investors about the company's financial health. In 2002, Fasto was indicted on 78 counts, including fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. The charges stemmed from his role in concealing Enron's financial losses and personally profiting from the fraudulent schemes. In 2004, Fasto pleaded guilty to 2 counts of conspiracy to commit securities and wire fraud. As part of the plea deal, he agreed to cooperate with prosecutors and testify against other Enron executives, including Jeffrey Skilling and Ken Lay. Fasto was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison and ordered to forfeit $23.8 million in assets. He served his sentence at a federal prison in Louisiana and was released in 2011 after serving approximately 5 years. Fasto's wife, Leah Weingarten Fasto, also faced legal troubles for her involvement in the Enron scandal. She served a brief prison sentence for tax evasion related to their finances. They have 2 children, and Fasto has largely focused on rebuilding his personal life post-Enron. Today, he is giving speeches on business ethics and his time at Enron. He often highlights how the actions he took, while technically within the rules at the time, were ethically and morally wrong. This is a guy who was charged with 4 times the number of charges as Lay and Skilling combined, yet did only 5 years and forfeited less than half the money that Skilling had to forfeit. While Fasto has expressed regret for his actions, opinions about his sincerity remain divided. Richard Causey was the CAO and later the CFO of Enron. Causey joined Enron in 1990 as a director of financial reporting. His work quickly gained the attention of senior management, and he rose through the ranks due to his expertise in financial accounting and reporting. Causey became Enron's chief accounting officer in 1997. As chief accounting officer, he was responsible for overseeing the company's accounting and financial reporting practices. He was involved in managing the company's books and ensuring that Enron's financial statements were presented in a way that met regulatory standards. In 2000, Causey was promoted to chief financial officer, where he gained even more influence over Enron's financial operations. As chief financial officer, Causey played a critical role in Enron's use of accounting practices that misrepresented the company's true financial condition. As part of his role, Causey signed off on financial reports that presented a false picture of Enron's stability and success. Causey's role in Enron's accounting practices made him a key figure in the scandal. He was directly involved in overseeing and executing the fraudulent financial reporting that ultimately led to the company's downfall. In 2003, Richard Causey was indicted on charges of securities fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering in connection with the Enron scandal. He was accused of participating in the schemes that misled investors and regulators, as well as being involved in the cover-up of Enron's financial troubles. During the legal proceedings, Causey maintained his innocence, claiming that he had been following orders from higher-level executives. However, in December 2005, just before his trial was set to begin, Causey reached a plea deal with the government. He agreed to plead guilty to 1 count of securities fraud, admitting his role in the fraudulent activities at Enron. As part of the plea deal, Causey agreed to cooperate with the prosecution in the ongoing investigations into other Enron executives, including Jeffrey Skilling and Kenneth Lay. In 2006, Causey was sentenced to a prison term of 6.5 years as part of his plea agreement. However, he did not serve the full sentence, as he was released from prison in 2011 after serving about 5 years. Since his release from prison, Causey has largely stayed out of the public eye. Richard Causey's involvement in the Enron scandal was a key element of the company's fraudulent activities. As one of the top executives in the company, he helped craft and maintain the complex web of financial manipulations that led to Enron's eventual collapse. His guilty plea and subsequent cooperation with prosecutors reflected the depth of his role in the scandal. Arthur Andersen, founded by Arthur E. Andersen and Clarence Delaney in 1913, Arthur Andersen LLP, one of the Big Five accounting firms at the time, played a central role in the Enron scandal as Enron's external auditor. The firm's involvement in the scandal led to its eventual downfall and is considered one of the most significant events in the history of corporate accounting. Arthur Andersen had been Enron's auditor for over a decade, helping the company prepare and verify its financial statements. The firm was responsible for ensuring that Enron's financial reporting adhered to generally accepted accounting principles, and accurately reflected the company's true financial condition. In the late 1990s, as Enron's financial complexity grew, the relationship between Arthur Andersen and Enron became problematic. Arthur Andersen not only served as Enron's auditor, but also provided lucrative consulting services to the company. This dual role created a conflict of interest, as Andersen had a financial incentive to keep Enron happy in order to continue receiving consulting fees, which were often much more lucrative than auditing fees. In late 2001, as the fraudulent activities at Enron came to light, it was revealed that Enron had been hiding massive debts and inflating earnings. Arthur Andersen came under intense scrutiny for its role in enabling these activities. It was revealed that Arthur Andersen had ordered the destruction of documents related to Enron's audits in an effort to cover up its involvement in the scandal. This included shredding over 1 ton of documents and emails related to the auditing of Enron's financial statements. This attempt to destroy evidence was a critical factor in the subsequent legal action against the firm. In 2002, Arthur Andersen was indicted on charges of obstruction of justice for the destruction of documents related to Enron's audit. The firm was accused of knowingly and willfully attempting to cover up evidence that could have exposed Enron's fraudulent activities. In 2002, a jury convicted Arthur Andersen of obstruction of justice, which led to the firm's immediate downfall. The conviction resulted in the loss of many of Arthur Andersen's clients, and the firm was effectively put out of business. The conviction was later overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2005 on the grounds that the jury instructions had been flawed. However, by then, the damage had already been done. The firm had lost nearly all of its clients and employees, and it was no longer able to operate as a viable business. In response to the Enron scandal and the role of Arthur Andersen in enabling the fraud, the U.S. Congress passed the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in 2002. This legislation aimed to increase corporate transparency, improve the accuracy of financial reporting, and strengthen penalties for corporate fraud. It also mandated stricter auditing and accounting rules, including the requirement for companies to have independent auditors and the creation of the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board to oversee the auditing profession. The act was designed to prevent future corporate scandals like Enron and Arthur Andersen. It imposed stricter rules on financial reporting and created a framework to hold accounting firms more accountable for their audits. John Clifford Baxter was a key figure in the Enron scandal, serving as the company's vice chairman and a close associate of CEO Jeffrey Skilling. Baxter joined Enron in 1991 and quickly rose through the ranks due to his sharp mind and strong performance. He held several senior positions, including Chief Strategy Officer and Vice Chairman of the company. Baxter played a significant role in developing Enron's trading operations, which were key to the company's growth. Known for his intelligence and candid demeanor, he often clashed with other executives over the company's accounting practices and ethics. Baxter reportedly expressed concerns about Enron's aggressive use of off-balance sheet entities and financial maneuvers. He warned others within the company about the risks, including the potential for financial ruin. Baxter resigned from Enron in May 2001, citing personal reasons, but there were indications he was deeply uncomfortable with the company's business practices. After his resignation, Enron's financial troubles came to light, leading to its bankruptcy in December 2001. Tragically, on January 25, 2002, Baxter was found deceased in his car in Sugar Land, Texas, from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. A suicide note expressing remorse and frustration was discovered at the scene. Baxter's death occurred just weeks after Enron's bankruptcy, and as investigations into the company's practices were intensifying. Baxter's death highlighted the immense personal toll of the Enron scandal. Many viewed him as a tragic figure who may have been consumed by guilt or stress from his knowledge of the company's practices. His passing added to the scandal's notoriety and raised questions about the pressures faced by corporate whistleblowers or those caught in unethical environments. Lou Pai was a senior executive at Enron and one of the less publicized figures in the Enron scandal, but his actions still played a role in the company's rise and fall. Pai's major contribution at Enron was his leadership of Enron Energy Services, a division of Enron focused on selling natural gas and energy management services to large companies. The unit was a major part of Enron's business strategy during the 1990s as the company diversified its operations beyond energy trading. Pai frequented strip clubs during his time with Enron, which led to an affair with stripper Melanie Fuel, who was also married, and resulted in a pregnancy. Upon learning of the affair, Pai's then-wife of over 20 years, Lana Lee, with whom he has 2 children, filed for divorce. Lou Pai and Melanie Fuel married and moved away from the public eye and invested in horse breeding and ranching, notably operating Canaan Ranch near Houston and later in Middleburg, Virginia. Pai's departure from Enron in 2001 was also surrounded by controversy. He left the company after selling most of his Enron stock. It was reported that he left Enron with a $250 million payout in the form of stock and other compensation. His exit from the company came shortly before Enron's financial troubles became widely known, adding to the perception that he had profited from the company's inflated stock prices while being less affected by the eventual collapse. After his resignation from Enron, Lou Pai was reported to have made significant investments in real estate, particularly in Colorado. One of the most notable real estate transactions involved Pai purchasing a $20 million estate in Aspen, Colorado, a highly affluent area known for its ski resorts and luxurious properties. Pai's decision to cash out his Enron stock before the company's collapse allowed him to retain a significant amount of wealth. At the time of Enron's bankruptcy, many employees and investors lost their savings and pensions, leading to public outrage about the actions of executives like Pai. Lou Pai's role in the Enron scandal is significant in that he represents one of the many executives who contributed to the company's rapid growth and eventual collapse, but who did not face criminal charges for their involvement. Pai's financial dealings, particularly his large-scale sales of Enron stock and his departure from the company shortly before its collapse, raised questions about his ethics and responsibility. While his role was not as publicly central to the accounting fraud as others, his actions fit into the broader pattern of greed and self-dealing that marked Enron's final years. Timothy Belden was a key figure at Enron who played a significant role in the company's energy trading operations, particularly during the height of its trading activities in the late 1990s and early 2000s. He is primarily known for his involvement in the California energy crisis and his actions surrounding Enron's manipulation of energy markets, which were later revealed as part of the broader Enron scandal. Timothy Belden joined Enron in the early 1990s and quickly became involved in the company's energy trading division, Enron Wholesale Services. Over time, he rose through the ranks to become the head of Enron's Western Power Trading Desk, which was responsible for trading electricity in the Western United States. Belden's team was responsible for the trading strategies that made Enron one of the most successful and high-profile companies in the energy sector. Belden is most infamous for his role in manipulating the California electricity market during the California energy crisis of 2000 to 2001. Belden and other Enron traders used a variety of illegal and unethical tactics to manipulate the market. One such tactic was known as round-trip trading, where Enron would buy and sell electricity at the same price, creating the illusion of market activity and driving up prices. This allowed them to profit from the inflated prices without actually providing any energy. The most famous of these manipulative schemes were codenamed Ricochet and Death Star. These involved creating false congestion in transmission lines, thereby causing power shortages and price spikes. These strategies contributed to widespread blackouts and skyrocketing electricity prices in California, which severely impacted consumers and businesses. His traders would sometimes joke about their actions, referring to them as gaming the system, unaware or perhaps indifferent to the damage they were causing to California residents and businesses. In addition to these atrocious actions, when demand for electricity would drop, they would cause artificial power shortages on the West Coast by shutting down power plants, which lead to sudden spikes in energy prices, in some cases, a 300% to 400% increase in price. In the wake of these revelations, Enron fired Timothy Belden in 2001 as part of the company's attempt to distance itself from the scandal. Despite his firing, Belden remained under investigation by both federal regulators and California state authorities for his role in the market manipulation. Belden faced multiple investigations into his role in the California energy crisis. In 2003, he was granted immunity from prosecution by the U.S. Department of Justice in exchange for his testimony against Enron executives involved in the fraud. His cooperation helped shed light on the extent of Enron's manipulations of the energy market. In 2005, Belden, along with other Enron traders, was sued in connection with the California energy crisis. The case was settled for an undisclosed amount, but Belden was never criminally prosecuted for his role in the energy market manipulation, despite the significant damage caused by Enron's actions. The California energy crisis, in which Enron played a major role, led to widespread economic damage. Consumers paid dramatically higher energy bills, and several businesses faced operational shutdowns due to power outages and inflated electricity prices. The scandal also undermined public trust in energy deregulation. The manipulations that Belden and his team carried out had long-lasting effects on California's energy markets, contributing to the state's financial crisis. The scandal damaged the reputation of energy deregulation and raised concerns about the lack of oversight in commodity trading markets. So, how did the fraud at Enron go on for so long? Enron's fraudulent activities on its balance sheets began in earnest during the 1990s, escalating as the company sought to meet increasingly ambitious earnings targets and impress investors. In 1992, early signs of manipulation emerged when Enron began using complex financial instruments to hedge risk and obscure losses. However, at the time, these practices were still within a legal gray area. The fraudulent practices became deeply entrenched by 1997, when the company began heavily relying on special purpose entities and other accounting tricks to hide debt and inflate profits. By the year 2000, the level of fraud reached its peak as Enron reported record profits, largely driven by fabricated earnings and concealed liabilities. This deception created the illusion of a thriving company, driving its stock price to an all-time high of $90.75 per share in August 2000. Enron's leadership was very skilled at hiding information and obfuscating financial details. The company's executives maintained a high level of control over the flow of information, ensuring that external auditors and regulators did not have full access to the company's true financial condition. The company's financial reports were designed to look legitimate and meet the regulatory requirements, even though they were deeply misleading. Enron had a reputation as a highly innovative and successful company, driven by its involvement in the rapidly expanding energy markets. Investors, analysts, and even employees were reluctant to question the company's financial results because of its powerful image in the business world. As long as Enron's stock price continued to rise, investors were less likely to scrutinize the company's financial statements closely. Many institutional investors continued to pump money into Enron, further fueling the company's stock price, despite the red flags that were beginning to appear. The collapse of Enron in 2001 sent shockwaves through Wall Street, reshaping the financial industry and sparking significant regulatory reforms. The scandal contributed to broader market instability, particularly in energy and technology sectors. The average Enron shareholder faced devastating losses when the company collapsed. Enron employees whose 401k plans were heavily invested in Enron stock saw their retirement funds wiped out. Over 11,000 employees lost a combined $2 billion in retirement savings. Average shareholders who bought Enron stock during its peak at over $90 per share often ended up with stock worth just 26 cents per share when the company went bankrupt. Shareholders collectively lost around $74 billion in stock value between mid-2000 and December 2001 when Enron filed for bankruptcy. 20,000 employees lost their jobs and medical insurance, and the average severance pay was around $4,500, despite the top executives receiving bonuses totaling $55 million. Today, the Enron building is now occupied by Chevron Corporation. It appears that prior to the Enron scandal, many investors did not have Ponzi scheme on their minds as they do today when speculating investment opportunities. The effects of the scandal are still felt to this very day, as an extra sense of skepticism is present in the investments and corporate world. And for good reason. Despite justice being handed down to the top few executives, the traders and additional executives that participated in the crimes yet testified and received little to no jail time are still out in the business world. Let this be a lesson to us to be cautious, question financial statements, and do our due diligence when making an investment. Condolences to all the victims of this worldwide scandal. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to give this video a like. Subscribe to the channel for additional content like this.